Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Jen Yundt Coles, SIBO Coach and Functional Medicine Health Coach. Please enjoy Jen Yundt Coles. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Jen Yundt Coles, SIBO Coach and Functional Medicine Health Coach. Welcome to the show.
Hey there, Mari. I am so excited to dive into this with you today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for joining me, and I am so excited to dive into this with you as well. Before we get into creativity and how it shows up in your life and what it means to you, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, so I'm Jen, and like you mentioned, I'm a functional medicine health coach, and my specialty is working with gut health, specifically SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, for those of your listeners who are unclear what that is. So it's very highly niched, and part of that whole vision and passion and mission for myself is to help my sort of fellow go-getters and entrepreneurs, recovering perfectionist types to understand the connection between the gut and brain and performance. And that also includes their creativity. And that's why I'm super excited to be able to discuss this with you today, because I'm using this in my practice to help encourage women, motivate them, use it as a catalyst to really help heal their bodies. And, it's such an important thing to me personally as well, being creative and having those outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in the world of gut health, you don't think about having these sort of conversations, but I find that it's so important
Yeah.
for overcoming chronic conditions and
Mm.
really being in tune with our bodies and our intuition, so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. So yeah, love this connection here.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
was not expecting to hear gut health and creative outlets be combined. So I'm so curious if you could maybe share a little bit about how that shows up or what those connections are that you use in your own work.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just share kind of personally. Like, I didn't say this at the top of the question that you asked first, but I'm also a mama to two college kids. I'm a home renovator. I like to redo wherever I'm living. I'm constantly trying to figure out how do I want to design this or redo it. I used to own a gluten-free bakery, and that was a way for me to express creativity as well. I play guitar, I write music, I write poetry. And so this is a really, you know, it's intimate, right, for me, right? It's really
Yeah.
important. And so to answer your question, I've kind of infused this into my practice,
Mm.
and the understanding that when we're on, I hate to use this word because it's overused, but I use it all the time, on our healing journey,
Hmm.
we forget what brings us joy.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
tend to let our hobbies go. We start feeling really isolated and alone. And maybe we have low energy and fatigue, or we're feeling hopeless because of this chronic condition, whether it's gut related or not. And we lose sight of all those things that really energize us
Hmm.
and ignite our passion and our soul. So
Hmm.
I try to talk about this in my practice with my clients, right? What are some things we can do during the day to activate some joy? Whether that looks like 5 minutes of getting back to your cross stitch, right? Or going outside and playing with your dog and doing some qigong, like whatever that's going to look like as far as moving your body or resetting your mindset. But I also love to talk to my clients about like doing things like journaling or writing short stories or poetry. I
Mm.
have a client who hadn't written in a long time, and one of the gifts that gave me in the end of our time together was this beautiful um, I don't know if you want to call it a story or a journal entry, but it was probably 12 pages long of her journey and how she's kind of blossomed and opened up
Mm.
after our time together. And it was such a, oh my gosh, it was inspiring to me, even though I'm the
Hmm.
coach, right?
Yeah.
To read that and to feel her creativity kind of lightening back up.
Mm.
I've also worked with musicians. I had a violin player in my practice for a while who was dealing with some arthritic hands, which was, rooted in her gut health. So we figured
Mm.
that out, and she was able to get back to playing her instrument and also teaching others. And so I find that it's really important. I know this is a roundabout answer, but
Keep
I find
going. I
it
love
really
it.
important, yeah, to talk about what's going to bring you joy today, even if it's a
Mm.
5-minute thing, or to talk about a bigger picture, like, hey, remember when you were 12 and that thing that you used to love to do? Let's
Mm.
maybe re-explore that. Or let's talk about some other things that you've never tried and
Yeah.
try to, incorporate something new and fun. And that might look like painting or taking a tap dancing class or whatever it is for that person.
Hmm.
But really important part of the conversation when overcoming a chronic illness for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so many questions are firing in my brain about this right now. And the main one is, what is that connection of gut health to our joy, or gut health to our creative expression, or what is that connection, if you could talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, and that's such a good, juicy question because a lot of people don't understand what that is, and we sort of
Hmm.
compartmentalize things in our lives sometimes.
Hmm.
Certainly in the conventional medicine world, that's how it works. Like you are just your small intestines in this moment when you're seeing this doctor, right? You're not
Yeah.
a whole being.
Yeah.
It's really important to understand that inside of our gut, we have a variety of microbes.
Hmm.
And, maybe that's bacteria and parasites and fungi and viruses, right? And unless they are pathogenic, they're not usually an issue. They're all living and coexisting together. And they create this really dynamic matrix of and sort of environment of communication. So there's a vagus nerve that runs from your brain to your gut. And we used to think it was always the brain communicating with the gut, but actually we know that it's way more opposite.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
gut is constantly communicating with the brain about your status of safety and the condition of your body and your environment. And
Mm.
so when your microbes are dysbiotic, for instance, some sort of pathogenic overgrowth or a bully on a playground, like I like to call it, that's constantly sending a signal to your brain that you are not safe.
Mm.
And that will put you into a fight or flight
Hmm.
sort of dynamic. And of course, when that's happening, you don't have the vision, you don't have the concentration or the cognitive power, you don't have that
Hmm.
creativity, that drive, because you're only thinking about how can I run away at top speed from this tiger right now?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so you don't have time to think about digestion or elimination. You don't have time to think about hormone production,
Hmm.
and your libido and fertility and things like that. And you certainly don't have time to be thinking about, ooh, I want to create this abstract painting right now. Right? So there's a total disconnect
Yeah.
between having that fire in, I want to call it in your belly, but also in your soul and your heart,
Hmm.
and having that dysbiosis. So it gets disconnected for sure. And we start feeling like we have a dark cloud over us and
Hmm.
we don't feel motivated, we feel uninspired. And
Hmm.
that's the connection. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you for breaking that down. I love
Yeah.
all of those pieces because it speaks to my own work with creativity and how safety is the foundation of
Oh, yeah.
creativity in my work. And that if we don't feel safe enough, I mean, perfect safety is hard to achieve, and that safe enough experience to take a creative risk, like the painting in our mind, actually putting it on canvas, or
Yeah.
trying something new that is a little scary, or how do we get to the edge of our comfort zone? Not
outside of it, but just to that edge where creativity really comes alive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can I reflect back on that really quick?
please,
I
yes.
love that you said that because this is such an important part of what I do in my practice, especially where so I have people come to me who have restricted their diets down to like 4 or 5 foods because they're in a total food panic
Yeah.
and they have food anxiety. They don't want to go out. They don't want to be social. They're stuck in their rut. And it creates this sort of dynamic where it's like, no, I don't want to take any risks. They don't want to leave their house because they don't know where the nearest toilet is going to be. It
Hmm.
creates this whole pattern and forward feeding cycle of having fear, not feeling safe,
Hmm.
and being unsure, unstable. And so, yeah, that definitely affects your ability or willingness, rather, to be vulnerable, to explore some expression, to express your feelings.
Hmm.
And so I love that you just said that. There is such a dynamic connection there of like feeling safe and whether or not you're willing to risk putting yourself out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
that.
We're speaking the same language. It's
Yes.
always nice to meet other people who have that connection to the creative experience. I'm curious, when you think of being creative, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really good question. And I'll say just maybe generally at the top, um, it's two things. It's a way to sort of recalibrate yourself, especially in the wild chaos that we live in. And the other thing too is it's a way for us, or it's a way for me to sort of see the unseen.
Hmm.
So, as far as in my practice, it's a way for me to look between the lines of the lab results, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
or to read between the lines, or it's a way for me to hear differently when my client is explaining their story, because there's always a story, especially with gut health.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a way for me to, well, as far as my practice goes, it's a way for me to I'm a big proponent of thinking outside of the box. I'm a total rebel against a conventional medicine approach to chronic gut issues. And so I like to think outside of the box and encourage my clients to do the same thing.
Hmm.
But for me personally, I think it looks and feels like ah like a calming effect. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting because it also really makes my heart race because I get excited.
Hmm.
It might show up like, a poetic line in my mind, and so I gotta
Mm-hmm.
quickly write that down. It also feels like my shoulders being released and just being able to breathe a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Creativity and expression is everything. I mean, that's why we're here. I think
Yes,
that's
yes to
why we're
that.
here. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a way for us to help engage other people, to connect, have relationships. I mean, think about
Mm-hmm.
the conversations you have with your friends who understand and love the same music that you do.
Yeah.
It's on a different level, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to have that soul connection
Mm.
based on different creative outlets, like,
Mm-hmm.
making connections with people who have similar creative outlets as you do.
Yeah.
Gosh, I could just talk about this all day. I don't think creativity is necessarily like a hobby, but it's more like, yeah, biological expression, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I think I see creativity as a way of life, and that's how I
Yes.
choose to live my life through that creative lens. As you were talking, I was connecting dots and pieces around when you were talking about clients who have restricted diet down to 4 or 5 foods or pieces that feel safe or comfortable eating because it doesn't create some effect on them,
Yeah, yeah,
around the difference between rigidity in kind of creative understanding and experience and flexibility in creativity, and how
yeah,
flexibility, even though it's scary, can open up so many doors, so many more doors for us than the rigid, clenched. I don't know. I can feel myself holding my breath as I even say the word rigid.
yeah. You know what? I love that you said that. Thank you so much for bringing that up because this is an important conversation I have with my clients.
Hmm.
as a recovering perfectionist, I can relate to this. A lot
Yeah.
of the women that come into my practice are entrepreneurial types, CEOs, professionals,
Mm-hmm.
also creatives, like I mentioned, musicians, artists, and things like that. But I see this a lot, and it's probably because, sometimes when we're in practice, we attract
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
personalities. So it's just so highly relatable for me, but I call this protocol perfectionism.
Mm.
And what happens is someone comes into my practice and I say right up front, we're going to be working together as partners. I'm going to be asking you for your intuition as well. We're going to design a plan that's unique to
Mm.
you. I don't use blanket protocols. And as far as like the diet goes, for example, like you're mentioning, and that rigidity, people are panicked,
Yeah.
right? On one hand, they want to be able to have food freedom, but on the other hand, they're scared to death to try something because they know they're going to blow up and die, right?
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
so it's a really important conversation. Like, okay, I'm going to give you an outline or a boundary here, some
Hmm.
guidelines, but I never see things as quote black and white or pass or fail as
Hmm.
far as like what protocol we're using or what diet we're using temporarily. And so I
Hmm.
really love to encourage my clients to lean into that a little bit. It takes some time, especially for some of them. It's really scary.
Yeah.
And it's so important to remember, for
Hmm.
instance, a bowl of broccoli might be fine for some person with someone with SIBO, but the other person might be like, oh my gosh, that makes me feel so horrible. I don't ever want to look at broccoli ever again, right?
Right. Right.
So it's highly unique, and I encourage people to experiment and just
Yeah.
kind of like have a little grace for themselves. Like, wow, you're going through a lot right now. There's so many moving parts to your body and your
Hmm.
environment and your relationships. And let's just take this one step at a time and,
Hmm.
you know, be creative about it. That's another thing too. I love cooking and I kind of go back and forth about like, let me have my own cooking show so that I can help people figure out
Yeah.
how to cook food for themselves. So that's another thing, like, hey, grow a bunch of herbs, like get your garden going and toss in some fresh sage here and some fresh cilantro there and just get creative with your meals so they don't feel so boring all the time, right? That's one
Hmm.
way we can engage um, in this conversation of feeling more flexible in what they eat, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a good question.
Yeah, thank you for kind of breaking this down and sharing so much. I also hear so much of that tapping back into that childlike curiosity of like, let's play, let's see
Hmm.
what works. This might work, this might not, but we've got
Yep.
to try it and be curious about it and pay attention. And so that idea of curiosity and childlike wonder about things, I hear that in what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I'll also just say this came to mind right when you were talking, but I think as women, especially if we're mothers as well, and we're working
Mhm.
outside of the home or not, it's just a lot, right? We're carrying a lot and we
Yeah.
forget. We forget who we
Yeah.
used to be before all this stuff happened.
Hmm.
I'm turning 51 next week, and like, I'm just having this whole, I'm not going to call it a midlife crisis. I'm just calling it like a remembrance or like a reawakening. Like, my kids are going away to college in a couple weeks, and my life is about to drastically change. And I see this in my practice too, where women just like they got a little quiet and they got
Hmm.
stuck in the routine and they forgot to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And I'll say, when you were in your early 20s, like what was the thing that you loved doing? Let's try
Hmm.
that again, or let's try a variation of that.
Hmm.
So that we can remember. I think that's the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that in because I agree. We get really caught up in the things that are happening right in front of us that when eh, if we don't we choose not to pause and step back and breathe and look at all of the things that we are so much more than a mother, a partner, a laundress, if you will, if
Yes.
you're doing
A dog groomer, all
a
the
dog
things we
groomer,
do.
a chef, all of the things to come back into that who am I, that identity piece I think you're really speaking to and how how much our creativity can be wrapped up in identity or ignored by identity or oh,
Yeah.
that's something I used to do and now I'm this other piece. And so yeah, how do we embrace all of the parts, all of our pieces? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this might be a conversation for another day, but I would love for you to just put it in a nutshell for me really quick, because I'm not really sure what the story is here. But how did you decide on having this podcast?
yeah.
This like idea of promoting and encouraging and, inspiring other people.
Creativity. I mean, creativity has been my life for all of my life, and
Yeah.
trying to figure out, I grew up as a performer and performing was my whole world. And then after acting school and living in New York City, it kind of shifted to what is creativity. It's not just the performing arts, it's a way of
Mhm.
life. And
Yeah.
so I went to grad school and have a master's in psychology and combined my degrees in acting and psychology to come up with
Right.
this
Oh,
world
yes,
of
I heard this in
sustaining
your intro.
creativity.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so that is where this all started, and wanting to support performers to really live creatively in their life and to fuel creative performance, to keep their creative cup full. And then, so I used to travel to universities around the country and share this with their dance and theater departments. And then the pandemic happened and turned it into a
Yeah.
podcast so I could keep the conversation of creativity going. And so I'm in year 6 of talking to people
Wow.
from around the world. And it is a pure passion of mine to talk about creativity. I could do it all day, every day. And
Yes. Well,
so,
and that's how you know it's right for you, right? Because now
yeah.
it doesn't even feel like work. It's just like the thing that you do, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's so fun. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
how this podcast came into fruition. And it's just continued and allowed me to meet so many incredible individuals around the globe and talk to
Yeah.
them
You
about
have some
creativity.
fascinating interviews. I just
Thank
listened
you.
to one by Deborah. I think her last
Oh,
name was Heiser, about
yeah.
creative mentorship.
Yeah.
That was so cool. As an entrepreneur, as a coach,
Hmm.
that really resonated with me. I just love the idea of just thinking about, how to infuse more creativity even in my mentorship, right?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this podcast is all about, helping
Yeah.
people be inspired and thinking or looking at their life in a creative way and seeing how creativity can infuse or expand or grow or shift or
Yeah.
change their life. So,
Yeah. Love it.
yeah. In terms of your own creative journey, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Yeah. So, gosh, I have a few. I don't know if I could boil them down, but one of the first ones that comes to mind is I have a younger brother, and he and I were just so imaginative and adventurous, and we would just make up so many stories and, live out these whole, roles and characters.
Hmm.
And that was probably my first memory, which I think is really interesting too, because my children, who are only about a year and a half apart,
Hmm.
were the same exact way. And to
Ah,
this day, I mean, they're going off to college, but to this day, they have all these stories and worlds that they've created. And I'm like, I secretly hope that one day they'll just like, make their own TV show or something together because they're so funny.
yeah.
But I think other things, it's like when I was younger, I wanted to do, makeup art for movies and just,
Hmm.
be creative that way. And I think even at a young age, I was musical and dancing and having
Yeah.
some sort of expression that way. And it's gone through my lifetime
Hmm.
of different endeavors that I've been engaged in.
Yeah. I mean, I really hear all just the ideas that were generated, and following them kind of sounds like the ideas of story that you and your younger brother
Yeah.
may have
Yeah.
created and followed as well.
And I think that what's really important about that, I mean, you can do that at any age, but just
Hmm.
understanding what's possible. Everything is possible.
Yeah.
And so, at one point in my life, like in my mid 30s, late 30s, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've had so many careers already, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of example am I going to be to my kids? But
Mm,
now I hear things from my children who are, saying things like, you made it look like everything is possible. Like if I want
hmm
to try this, I can go try it.
mm,
And I don't have to be stuck in one idea.
yeah.
And, that's kind of a double-edged sword because now I have my younger child who can't decide on a major in college. So
That's okay too.
it is
It's a
okay.
journey, you'll figure it out. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for all of these pieces. I'm curious, working with women in particular, and there, we kind of spoke about women and this identity of being something now that they might not have been previously. But for people who don't feel creative, or that creativity is like some elusive thing that they can't figure out, how would you encourage them to find creativity in their life?
Yeah, excellent question. So I think that's a few fold here, I guess you could say. Um, I really like people, and you mentioned this word earlier. So I have this thing called pause, propel.
Oh.
And so I like to encourage women in my practice to get still for a few
Mm,
minutes. This is a really big challenge for some women.
yes.
I know it was for me, but now that I'm doing it on a regular basis, I look forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting still so you can hear yourself. There's
Yeah.
so much noise in the world that we get drowned out,
Yeah.
and we start outsourcing our intuition to other people.
Mm,
And so it's really important to pause before we propel to the next thing. So that's going to be probably the top.
hmm
The other thing I like to do is I'm a list maker. So I'll say, why don't you make a list of some things that you think might be able to bring you joy on a daily basis? So it could be something so simple, like today I'm going to make banana bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or tomorrow I'm going to go on a 30-minute walk on my lunch break instead of sitting at my desk while I'm eating.
Mm-hmm.
Or, those are kind of like movement sort of things. Those aren't necessarily like getting creative.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once we have that sort of parasympathetic reset by like
Yeah.
changing the scenery or doing something different, that opens us up to creativity and downloads and inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the backdoor way to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll also just encourage people like you don't have to invest a lot. You don't have to make these huge grandiose plans, but maybe say like I'm gonna go check out my local, rec center and see what's going on over there. They might have a painting class or one of those like wine nights that you go with your girlfriends and you like paint
Mm-hmm.
the still life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just those simple little like let me get out of my comfort zone, try something new, and then it might spark something totally different. So then you just go
Mm-hmm.
in that direction and you just
Mm-hmm.
follow it. Just
Mm-hmm.
follow, the prompting. And I think that's mostly how I would say
Yeah.
or encourage someone who felt stuck or a little lost where to
Mm-hmm.
start. Hmm.
And what about for people who really get crippled by that perfectionism of I can't do it because I'm not perfect. It's not going to be perfect, or that afraid to even try
Yeah.
something because of how hard they are on themselves.
Yeah, and that's a big one, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that for
Yeah.
sure. But what I would say is first, just be super self-aware
Mm.
and recognize that you're hitting up against resistance. I mean, this is what I
Hmm.
do, right? Like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little something there. What's that about?
Yeah.
And ask more questions. Is it because I'm afraid to be seen or criticized or
Mm.
trolled or, whatever it is? Is there some fear around that? What is that? Like, unpack it a little bit and then just get
Hmm.
real. Like, is that true? Is that actually true about me? Or is that
Mm.
just a story I'm making up?
Hmm.
And then the other thing too is really just trying not to force it.
Hmm.
If you don't feel like you're in the moment, then don't do it then. Come back to it later. Try it again
Mm.
when you're in a different place. Um, yeah, I mean, don't try to bypass that sort of insider intuition when it comes.
Hmm.
Let it land and then take action from there. But I would say if we're getting stuck because of perfectionism, those are probably some of the first things I would recommend. Just
Hmm.
getting real. Call
Yeah.
yourself out. Call yourself out.
Way easier said than done.
Yeah.
It can be a vicious cycle when you
Hmm.
try and call yourself out as a perfectionist. So if
Yep,
you
it
don't do
really
that
is.
perfectly, I understand. Yeah.
I think
So
too, another thing is like, I mean, I'm a coach, but I hire a coach, right? So it's
yeah.
really good to have some sort of cheerleader or someone who can speak truth to you when you're
Mm-hmm.
stuck in your BS, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a treat chatting with you. I realize I have lost track of time and we could keep going and keep
Yeah.
talking, but I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Yeah. So I think we kind of hit on this a little bit. But it feels like a release. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like, I'm grounded, but at the same time, floating around in the ethers
Yeah.
and being, expansive.
Mm.
I think I mentioned too, sometimes my heart will race. It really depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm playing guitar and singing, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is really good.
Yeah.
And then other times I'm like, I want to make some cinnamon rolls for my kids, and that's just my creative flow doing that, right? And it's very
Mm-hmm.
peaceful and calming.
Mm.
The thing that I've learned over the years is that the feeling of creativity is really close to divinity.
Mm.
You are, especially as women, connected to that higher source, that higher power, when
Mm-hmm.
you are expressing yourself, whatever that looks like for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've learned how to recognize that for myself now.
Mm.
It's just a different level, it's just a different frequency. Yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing everything. If people want to learn more about the work you do and the things you have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
Yes, thank you for asking. So the best place is to drop into my website. It's the SIBOcoach.com, and that's pretty much my hub. You can find out more about me and my journey. You can get my free resources. I have a shop on there. There's all kinds of goodies and guides. And yeah, I just encourage people to go in there and check that out.
Perfect. Well, I'll put that link in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you so much, Jen, for taking the time to chat with me. This has been such a treat conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure. I appreciate your time, Mari.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.